Benvenuto o benvenuta in questa nuova puntata versione video di WARMUP Podcast, il podcast dei preparatori atletici. Sono coach JT e prima di iniziare volevo chiederti il grandissimo favore, se non sei già iscritto al canale, di correre a cliccare ora sul tastino iscriviti. Non ti costa nulla, ma mi aiuterebbe tantissimo a far crescere il canale. Esiste anche una versione solo audio del podcast che puoi trovare su Spotify o su Apple Podcast. Abbiamo anche ovviamente la pagina Instagram, se non ci segui già lì basta cercare warmup.podcast per rimanere sempre aggiornato. Infine, se ti piace qualche puntata in particolare, la vuoi condividere sui tuoi social, sarebbe di grandissimo aiuto e magari tagga anche la pagina. Ora basta chiacchiere e goditi questa nuova puntata. Una piccola introduzione a questa puntata che sarà leggermente diversa, ovvero sarà in inglese. È un esperimento che ho voluto fare perché l'ospite di oggi sarà FRASER scozzese, che fa il preparatore atletico presso il Biella Rugby. FRASER è un mio carissimo amico e abbiamo deciso di provare a fare questa puntata in inglese. Spero la possiate comunque comprendere. Vi chiedo scusa anticipatamente per il mio pessimo inglese o comunque non ottimo. E spero comunque che la possiate apprezzare e che possiate imparare qualcosa. Perciò, detto questo, andiamo alla puntata. Benvenuti in questa nuova puntata di WarmUp Podcast, il podcast dei preparatori atletici. Oggi puntata speciale in inglese. So, this is gonna be a special episode because we're gonna talk in English. So, welcome, Fraser. Thanks to be here.
Ciao buddy, thank you for having me. Grazie mille, è un piacere essere qui.
So, Coach Fraser, why you are you in a Italian podcast for strength and conditioning, Coach? Where are you from and where are you now?
Yeah, so I'm from Scotland, and I'm in Biella working with Biella Rugby Club now, and I have been for the last 2.5 years. So this would be my third season, but as we know, COVID has kind of made that a little bit tricky. So still on season 2, really, because the third season hasn't started.
Yeah, okay. So you are in Biella. You are a strength and conditioning coach in rugby. But how you started, why you started the strength and conditioning career, and what was the motivation behind it?
Well, I guess it all started with being a failed athlete. So, you know, I wanted to pursue, when I was younger, I wanted to pursue rugby myself. But strength and conditioning was in a slightly different place many years ago. And that there were really good S&C coaches, but they weren't really readily available the way they are now, because we have more S&C coaches that are really good and the standards raised. So I actually suffered from dislocations and I had 2 operations by the time I was 19, which made me kind of have to walk away from rugby and really take a step back and look at what I wanted to do. And I was always the type of guy that liked the preparation for sport. I really enjoyed seeing that, okay, if I do this much work, then the outcome comes when I play in the season, and I can make myself better. I always liked that idea and liked that, you know, hard work equals results, provided you're working smart as well. So that kind of made me want to segue into being a coach and training people, because I like that feeling for myself, but I also love when I can see that feeling in other people that have, you know, followed the program, worked hard, and they've got the results and they can see that on field or whatever the sport is. I think it's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, I wanted to get in from there. I spent some time figuring out how to do that. I went to America. You know, I was working as a personal trainer. I went to America just to learn from Eric Cressy, and you know, he was the shoulder guy at that time and still is, and so he really opened my eyes to what I could be doing to fix my own shoulder. And you know, obviously I learned a lot about his method and what he does. And I came back from that trip thinking, okay, I need to change my trajectory and really, dial in on becoming an S&C coach, because, what I'm doing now is working with general population, and that's fine, and I enjoy that, but it's not where I want to be and what I want to be doing in 10 years' time. So at that point, I decided to go to university and go through all the formal qualifications that you need to be an S&C coach, as well as gather experience. So
okay,
that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
I didn't know that you went to FRASER, which is like a big name in strength and conditioning coaching. Because we didn't say at the beginning, but we met each other not in person, but I saw you training a former player of mine, and I was like, how this guy is this Scottish strength and conditioning coach is in Italy, and I slide into your DMs, and since then we talked a lot, also with Filippo Nazon, so we are kind of like talking business, talking strength and conditioning, not every day, but a lot. So how was going through Eric Cressy method? What did you learn from him?
Oh, so much. Let me just put the volume up here, buddy. So that was 13 years ago. Yeah, 13 years ago now. So I just learned a lot. I mean, at the time, remember, I didn't know anything about S&C really. I mean, I knew about training people, but obviously I was very, very young in my career, and I wanted to go to experience what it was like, and also selfishly for me to get my shoulder looked at, assessed, and so yeah. I mean, there was a lot to take away at the time. Now, what I remember specifically is, how they delegate between their interns and the coaching staff, the ratio of 1 to 4 they had at the time of coach to athlete. I don't know if they've changed that since, and how precise the coaching, because they had such that ratio of athlete, of coach to athlete, they could be really precise on coaching. There wasn't 20 people where you have to get them moving, you have to keep a 360. And a big thing at that time for him was, and it probably still is, making sure you do the warm-up and the main lift, deadlift, squat without shoes on. That was a big thing at his facility. So there was a lot of movement prep work and a lot of stuff that really helped me at the time, and really just helped me understand human movement better. So yeah, there was a lot to take away. Plus, it was my first time in America.
Yeah, did you enjoy? I love America.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. I wasn't, let's say, I wasn't old enough at the time I wasn't quite the age to go into bars, but I did visit 1 or 2. So yeah, it was a good trip all around, for career, for learning, and for exploring a bit of America.
Okay, so Cressy was your first look really at strength and conditioning. Then, as you said, you go through the normal pattern, through university, through certification, etc. And after what happened? What was your first job or big internship you had?
Yeah, so I was always, because my background was in personal training, I was always working with people. And then because I was segueing into strength and conditioning, I started to attract, the athletes that have kind of slipped through the net or didn't fit into a system. So I started working with athletes when I was at uni, working with university athletes and so on and so forth. And then I did an internship at the St. Andrews University. So I had exposure to working with individuals, athletes, and also like teams where you come in and you have 1 hour and then you're out and the next team is in. So you have to be very on the ball, know the programs, keep a 360, keep people safe, but also get results somewhere. So that was really interesting. And from uni, I got a job up in Aberdeen working in a bit of a dual role. So I was strength and conditioning specialist, but also there was personal training and fitness intertwined with that. So for example, I looked after the S&C for rowing, for the judo university, athletes that do judo there, and different sort of sports clubs. But I also had to take spin class, for example. So there was a bit of fitness in there, and there was a bit of S&C. But you know, it was really quite a fun job to do at that time. But I was looking to kind of bed in with just one specific population and one specific team.
Okay, I know during those times where you are at the beginning and you are like thrown into the pool, you know, and you have to swim, you have to learn to swim while you are in the water. Is where you find out if you really like to do this job or not. Was the same for you or not?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just became more and more interesting because there was more planning, there was more, you know, things on the line. You had to be precise. You had to have a quick turnaround of data so that coaches would actually get the information and be able to use it. You know, there was late nights and early mornings because, you know, I had to close the gym maybe at 11 o'clock and open and get my athletes, you know, prepare for my athletes coming in for 7. So you're opening at 6:30 and getting, so it's, you know, it's just a normal hustle, I think, when you're starting your career and discovering if this is something that you want to and can do for the future. And certainly for me, you know, it was. I enjoy it as much now as I did. I enjoy it more now than I did then. So yeah.
So it looked like the right career path for you.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit for now. And there's, you know, as you know, there's things you can segue into when you decide coaching is, you know, you've had enough of coaching. So we'll see. But for now, I think I'm in a good fit.
Yeah. What about, I know you did a great experience with the Scottish Rugby Federation. Can you talk to us a little bit what you did? What was your role? How it worked?
Yeah. So I was regional S&C lead for the academy in Scottish Rugby in the north. So that involved looking after athletes, Scotland women, under 20s, under 18s and under 16s that were selected and in my area of Scotland, which it'd be the equivalent of kind of covering almost where you are all the way to where I am in Biella. So quite a distance. So that was really interesting. And within that role, I was assigned to the Scotland 18s when they went on their campaign in the Six Nations down in Wales. So I had athletes on every stage of the athletic journey. So I had the under 16s that are just figuring out what training really is. I had the under 18s that wanted to push on to earn a contract. You know, I had the under 20s that were breaking into the professional teams more or less. And then I had Scottish women who, some of them were, you know, at the end of their career playing at the very top, you know, international rugby. Some of them were just starting out and figuring out international rugby. So it was a really interesting mix, and it certainly wasn't a one program fits all, because, you know, there was guys, girls, there was 16-year-olds, there was 26-year-olds. So yeah, it made it a challenge, but it made it really interesting as well.
Yeah. What was one big lesson, or what you take away from that job? What did you learn from that job?
You know, there's lots of, I think every year you evolve as a coach, because coaches tend to be, I think, quite reflective in nature. You know, you're always assessing the plan after, reviewing, and then going into a new plan. So there was a lot to take away every year. Even here in Biella, I'm always thinking, okay, well, did that go well? Okay, that did go well. Let's look how to use that again. Or, hey, that didn't go the way I thought. How do I change that next time? Anyway, I guess there's a lot from Scottish Rugby, but the main thing personally for me was more on the reporting data, knowing what data is important, recording that really diligently and reporting that to the right people, because, you know, Scottish Rugby is a large organisation. There's lots of moving parts, and like I said, I was working with you know, different teams essentially, Scotland women, under 20s, under 18s, and various people wanted information on various athletes. So I think for me, that role really taught me how to step into more of a position where I can take a step back from coaching as well, look at the data, review what's important, and report what is important, good and bad. I think that's really important to state. You know, don't just report good data. You have to acknowledge that life is not like this. And so,
sometimes we cherry picking the good data and avoid the bad one. Yeah, absolutely. That's I think is a big takeaway, especially at the beginning of a career. How important data are, and how to present them to the right people. Because I can imagine you are the one guy, but you got 8 under 16, 18, under 20, so you got 3 different technical stuff. So you got a lot on your plate to give away. So I can imagine it was a big lesson, I guess. Yeah. From being in Scottish rugby, how you end up in Biella in Italy?
It was a kind of, and this comes with my athletes as well, like I'm always making decisions based on a few key thoughts, and I never thought that I would, work in Italy, just because the idea never occurred to me. And it turns out that a job in Biella came up. I'd never heard of Biella, but I thought, I'll throw my name in the hat. I'll put in an application and just, I'm happy here, but let's just see what happens there. And it turned out I ended up speaking on WhatsApp video with the head coach, and it became a bit more of a consultation, I think, process where, I was kind of asking as much questions as he was asking me, just about the setup. And, I didn't know anything about Italian rugby or Biella rugby for that matter, really, other than, the check the website, do some due diligence there. But I think he respected my honesty, and the conversation ended with, you should come out and have a look at the club and we'll have a further talk. And again, I was happy where I was, but I thought, hey, I've never been to Italy. So yeah, if that's fine for you guys, let's do that. Anyway, when I was out in Biella, I saw that I could make a real difference. I saw that it would be an opportunity for me to grow, to be in a new environment, a new culture, to learn a new language. Più o meno, we're getting there. Ho bisogno ancora 2 anni, forse 2 stagioni. But yeah, and when I saw that, and then I met the people, and I also acknowledged that this team would be my team. It would be not my team, like, there's a head coach, but in sense of the S&C program, I'd really have good, tight control over it, and I'd be working directly daily with the technical coaches, and that really appealed to me at the time. And all those factors together, I just thought, okay, this is something that I want to try. I don't know what opportunities will come up in France or Italy or England in the future, and this one's here and now, so let's do it. So that was that. I signed, and at the end of the season, I moved over for the new season in Biella.
Sounds like a good leap of faith, but it looks like it works. As you say, this is like the 3rd season. So
yeah.
As you said, I was impressed by the thing that you say, that here in Biella, you feel like this team is kind of yours. You got a lot of power. When you arrived as a strength and conditioning coach, a professional strength and conditioning coach in Italian rugby, probably you're like a figure they never see it before. So how you set up strength and conditioning program from kind of zero, I guess, or from a really small strength and conditioning program?
Yeah. I mean, when you say I had a lot of power, I don't know about that. but certainly they were open to my ideas, so that's good. You know, there, like you said, it was a club that had gone from winning Serie B and they just got promoted to Serie A, and they were really open to what strength and conditioning might look like, and I was very clear on what I think strength and conditioning needs to look like for rugby. So before I came out, for example, you know, you mentioned it's a leap of faith, but before I came out, they took a leap of faith and they got things organized, like little things such as, you know, a records board in the gym. Okay. Big things like the correct equipment. So, you know, we needed bumper plates, we needed barbells that spin. We needed speed gates because, you know, there's a lot of talk about getting people faster and doing all these drills, and that's great. But you know, I want to see it. I want to test it. Otherwise, we don't know if it's working or not. So, so Biella organised all that before. You know, I gave them a list, and they organised all that, and that was brilliant. So, coming into it, it was a case of these guys had not. I mean, if you look at the average squat and average bench press of our forwards and backs, I mean, it's like the guys that hadn't done strength and conditioning. Of course, we had a couple of the guys that were into the bodybuilding, and I think we had a 120 bench press, for example, I can remember off the top of my head, and a 140 squat, and I think that was it. And you know, we can maybe get into the conversation if you want regarding, well, bench press and squat, that doesn't make you a good rugby player. Like, okay, we can talk about that, but the point is, they were really not used to strength and conditioning from what I understand it as, and so I could see that there was going to be a big difference. So we focused on strength at that point, and really trying to get the guys globally strong with squats, lunges, just all the basic stuff. So I can't remember the question, but I hope
yeah, you answer it like, and we can go from what you just say, because we almost have a similar experience. And maybe first year one is like the foundation year. You just teach the correct technique of the exercise you like and you use, and again, you say you need the right equipment for your style, for your, you know, program, like speed gates, bumper, good barbells, etc. And I'm gonna ask you how long did it take? As you say, you got one or two guys, and the rest is not really good. I can imagine you try to not move those 2-3 up, but try to pull the rest of the team, the average, as up as you can until it level up to a decent level of strength, speed, etc. How long did it take? A year, less than a year, since your program could be run as smoothly as you want?
Yeah, well, the good thing is the boys bought into it straight away, more or less. The Serie A boys, you know, when we had our first meeting, I'll never forget. So I had memorized something in Italian, so like 2 minutes of Italian, and then of course they all thought that I spoke Italian, so I had to say, oh no, but. One of the questions the boys asked was, you know, all the talk, blah blah blah, but with these techniques, will you go over the technique and how to do the exercise? And I kind of looked at the head coach like, is he stai scherzando qui? But that's how innocent the question was. Like, that's
I can imagine.
One small part of my job is to make sure you're safe and you know the technique. So the boys bought into the program really well, and also the head coach really facilitated that. I mean, the reason I was at Biella was because the head coach and the assistant coach who became the head coach wanted to. They knew what S&C was. You know, they had been in. They're professional rugby coaches, so they know you know what they want from their their strength and conditioning coach. So Aldo, the head coach now, was really good at, you know, hey, we need this, and this is why we're doing it. And he let me, you know, influence the program and keep very close communications with him. But in terms of putting a date on it, I mean, it's just constant progress. You know, the boys are never, you know, I'm not looking at anyone in the squad really, apart from maybe, okay, there's two that come to mind that have reached their athletic potential. You know, there's some guys that are at the end of their, well, the tail end of their playing career, so maybe three seasons left. You know, I'm not looking to get their squat from 180 to 200. Like, it's, you know, it's not going to necessarily make them better, but generally the progress is still there to be had, whether it's in speed or fitness or helping prepare them for the rugby KPIs, you know, in the transfer group. So I couldn't give you an exact date of, we've reached point B, because it's just a constant evolution, to be honest. It's that constant review, and okay, this program worked really well for one person, it didn't work so well for this guy. Why is that? He was 2 weeks in the south of Italy having a holiday in pre-season. Okay, that's maybe why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I want to ask you pros and cons of being a foreigner, people from outside Italy, coaching Italian players.
I can only speak from my experience.
Absolutely.
Of course, the language barrier can be a barrier. At the start of working in Biella, I was doing a lot of demonstrations because just everything was new. Now, you know, it's not such a barrier. The boys know the rhythm of what I'm looking for, and also, you know, I speak way more Italian than I did 2 years ago. Not perfect by any means, but it's much better than what it was. So I think language barrier is the main thing. Definitely, you know, this, I almost forget, but, you know, there was a time where boys were having two sugars in their espresso, 4 espressos a day. That's changed, so they're not doing that anymore. They understand kind of what we're looking for in terms of nutrition. But yeah, barriers, I would say is it's the same barriers you face in Scotland, or I imagine in England. You know, you'll get people that want to interact with you, that want to do your work. You'll get people that don't. You'll get some people, and this isn't strength and conditioning specific, but certainly around town, you'll get some people. I remember going to a cafe the first time I was here, and like a cafe bar, and there was a woman that helped me learn Italian. She was very, very nice to me and helped me learn Italian, and it's great. I still go to her today, and then she makes fun that I still don't speak it great. But there's other people that you'd go into a shop, and, you know, they would think that you can't understand, but they would be like making fun of you. The problem is you don't have the vocabulary to respond, but in the learning process, the first thing is, you know, you start to recognize words, but you just don't know how to respond to them. So there was a mixed bag in that. Certainly not at the rugby club, but just being in a foreign environment. And listen, you've just got to take that on the chin, as we say in Inglese. It's just, it is what it is. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's many professional barriers, other than more sort of cultural, like with food and things like that. The boys still do not like when I give suggestions on food. So I can put in macronutrient recommendations, but, you know, I can't put in the specifics of what to eat. Like the tuna pasta pesto is just a disaster for some people.
Okay,
like,
no recipes. Just micronutrients, no recipes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. let's move into more X and O's of strength and conditioning. Can you talk to us about how you periodize full year, like off season, in pre-season, and in season? What kind of like periodization you use? And let's talk a little bit about it. Don't go into a lot of specifics because we don't have like 2 hours, but just to know how you work, how you set up your program, so we can learn from you.
Yeah, so for the Serie A, if we look at that, I think I use the biomotors abilities model. So it's a classic model. It allows you to focus on different blocks of the season. And from there, I kind of, when we get into, so we go through a general physical prep and then into our specific prep. And it's when it's our specific prep that I kind of categorize guys into four sections, which I stole from Ash Jones, who's an S&C coach from New Zealand. I think it's he's from New Zealand. I'm going to back myself. And yeah, he's got great experience. So I read his book, and he was in Edinburgh. I didn't actually have the opportunity to sit down and talk with him because he was busy and I was busy, but certainly read his book, and his style of coaching and the way that he was kind of, because I saw him deliver sessions and whatnot, certainly influenced me, and certainly that way of thinking where you can categorize people into, okay, you need more of this, you need more of that. It certainly made a lot of sense to me in the specific prep. And it seems to, that's one thing that guys have really bought into is they like to be in groups. They like to know, I'm doing this program that's different from him because I need this and he doesn't. And they can see that, they're not, they're adults. They know, okay, I need to get faster. That's what, okay. Yeah, he needs more muscle. Okay. So in a really broad sense, that's kind of how I approach the Serie A programming. COVID's a little bit different. And this year, I work with the 18s as well at the club, and I've really just gone so simple with the 18s now, and I'm loving it. And they are getting really, really good results with just classical linear periodization. And, they had a game. They were still in the day before lifting because it wasn't a rugby game that was to get them into the next league or anything like that. So they did 3 times 12 for a month, 3 not changing exercises, 3 times 8 for a month, not changing exercises, 3 times 5, and they're on week 2, and we're going into lockdown tomorrow, so it's a shame. But the results they were getting in terms of strength and power were really good, and I put a little 10-meter intervention in there. I wanted to see when we included power cleans in our 3 times 5 over a 6-week block, if that affected the 10-meter time. We won't get to finish that, but yeah. So there's, I think different level of athlete requires a different model or different approach. But I tried to keep it as simple as I can, because the overriding thing behind all of this is athlete application. So if the athlete doesn't want to do the work, it doesn't matter what you've planned for next month or last month or whatever, like, it's just, you're not going to get them better. So I always try and keep that in mind as well when I'm thinking about programming and when I'm delivering a session to the boys.
That's really interesting, the things you say, that athletes, especially older athletes, so over 20, I guess, loves to see that they got a special program just for them. They are in the speed group or in the hypertrophy group, and that builds a lot of buy-in. Of course, you need the equipment to do it. I know you got a pretty decent gym for being in Italy, so I know you can do a lot of that. And I really like what you say, because I think it's the same. It's a huge method to build buy-in in older athletes, at least. And can you repeat for our listeners the name of the book of Ash Brown?
Oh, name of the book, I don't remember, but if you look up Ash Jones, He's a New Zealand strength and conditioning coach. I think it's called, his book is Engineering Performance for Rugby. Ash Jones. Now, his book, he's got a lot of good information. His book is maybe not, structured like a typical sort of, it's not structured like super trading or something like that. But there's lots of ideas in there, and it's like you're getting an insight into a very experienced coach's brain, and you just like, okay, cool, I'm going to take this. So definitely something to check out for sure if you're an S&C coach in rugby.
Perfect. I want to ask you, what are for you the rugby KPIs? What are you looking for? What are you testing? Why are you testing it?
Yeah, so for me, that can depend on the team, and certainly it's positional specific. So that's more of a question for a rugby coach who would have great detail on that. Maybe stats on, I mean, different teams will have different stats, but your scrum half is looking at the skill of the box kick and things like that. And what's the KPI for a scrum half? Meters per game. Like, it depends on the rugby coach. Some coaches, and it depends on the game plan. So it depends on the rugby coach. A number 8, how many meters made in tackles? How many line breaks? These are things that are at our level, I think, because you're in Serie A, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you have an analyst or you have that data sort of reported back.
I got nothing, mate.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's teams that have, for example, a Scottish team where they were tracking the metric of time spent on the ground, because you can't play rugby on the ground, like you're out of the game. So they called it the big score. What is your big score? Back in the game. And they were literally, obviously the less time you spend in total, like the more you can contribute to your teammates. So that was not really a KPI, but a metric. But so I think it really depends on the team. For me, in the level that I'm working with just now, I have their athletic markers. Let's say I wouldn't call them KPIs. I'd call them athletic markers for what I'm doing, because they're really the things that I test. They're very, very, very general, but you can get good objective data on that. So 10 and 30 meter time, strength scores, so squat, bench, chin up, power scores, counter movement jump, Olympic lifting variations. There was, for a time, we were using the push band, but the old version of the push band, not the 2.0, and we were looking at athletic profiles during a warm-up, in season. That was quite useful. I can see, okay, this guy's accelerating 100 kilograms as he was before, so he's ready to train, athlete readiness, or this guy's like accelerating 100 kilograms way above what we thought, so he's going to have a really good day of training this day, and that's great because he's playing on Sunday. He's playing. Since they changed the software, we don't use that anymore because we've decided not to. We've decided to pay staff and players and not software. So I'm quite happy for that during the current COVID crisis. But that's probably something I'd look to get back into, velocity-based training. I do think that is that's a useful metric, like there and then. You know what I mean? There's nothing worse than collecting data for data's sake. If you can't use it, I know that if you take a step back and look at your program, our program is missing a wellness and not athlete readiness. Well, I'll tell you what our athlete readiness is, but it's missing that wellness and readiness objective data. Reason being is, if it rains here in Biella, like the guys are scoring 10 out of 10 session. That was the hardest thing we've ever done because it was raining.
We got you.
Like for me, is data that one would be hard to get, as you know, with adherence. Getting information from the guys can be tricky sometimes. And two, there was a time where I was in a team where guys had to write in, you know, how much hours they slept, all the wellness stuff that you probably know, how much you slept, the quality of your sleep, how you're feeling this morning, blah, blah, blah. And I would look at that before coming into train, and it's, you know, it would give me a point of a conversation to have. Hey, you know, you didn't get much sleep last night. Well, let's talk about that, blah, blah, blah. Now, and I much prefer this, it's just, hey, how you doing? Sometimes when you spend time with a group as well, as you know, like, you'll start to tell when someone has had a bad day and maybe you need to not speak to them, or maybe you do need to speak to them. Like, that's the beauty of getting to work with a team for a period of time, like really understanding your players. You know, saying ciao, and there's a ciao, that, okay, that guy needs some space today and he's not going to have a great session, but that's because something happened at home and obviously he just needs to get through the day today. Like, so that's kind of something that data can't tell you. The flip side of that is, you know, you can't maybe, I'm not using that data to predict injuries or anything like that, but hey, I think you can't save the world. You've got to do what you can do and do it as best you can. And yeah, you can't do everything.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Especially if you are in a small club, you are alone, you have to do everything. You just need to pick what you really can make a difference. The rest, you try to have a conversation and not just waste 20 minutes of your time putting data inside, how you sleep, this score, etc., etc., etc. Because you have to do other 100 things in the day. Good. And I want to ask you, how much is important speed training in your program? Are you train speed with your athletes?
So I look at speed as, well, start with the young guys. You get young guys stronger and do some speed work, like they get faster. I think we know that that's an easy win. I think there's a lot of gimmicks and gadgets that is sold to people to think that, hey, we need to do all this sort of stuff to get faster, when actually get stronger and run fast and you'll be okay. I tend to categorize speed and speed training into two types of drills. So drills that provide a reference and learning for the body and where it should be, so the skill of speed, and then like stimulus drills where, okay, you're moving fast because we need you to move fast to get fast. So I use that as a combination, and I kind of treat it like, where I can, individualize it as much as possible. Like you would, okay, when you're looking at someone's weightlifting clean, who's been doing it for a while, and maybe they're not extending enough, or they're pulling too early or whatever, and then you would provide a drill for a period of time, like a reference drill, to tidy up their technique. That's what I tend to look at with speed. So if you're trying to get fast, you need to be running at least twice a week, fast, high quality. But I think there's more to it than that. I think that, you know, we have the A skip, B skip, C skip, these plyos, but does your athlete need to do the A skip? Maybe as a warm-up, maybe just to maintain, maybe for whatever reason. But what about using other drill, like actually having a look at how he runs and seeing, okay, he needs some heavy sled work with a low toe drag because he's that guy that's bounding so vertically at the start. I mean, I say that because that's one that we had this season. We had a guy, he plays 10 or 12, and he was just, you know, he struggles to get stronger. You know, he's a bit of an older player, and he works, but he was getting stronger and he was getting a bit faster, nothing crazy. But when we actually looked at how he ran and made an intervention for that low drag, I mean, he made significant changes. And I was like, why did it take me so long to identify that drill for him? I should have done that quicker. I didn't say that out loud until now, so maybe just edit this out, I don't know. But yeah, I think for speed, you know, we know plyometrics helps acceleration, so you need to be running twice a week. And even when we're looking at from a protective side of things, like not rehab, but, you know, there's performance and then there's protection. And prehab, yeah. Certainly, one of the things I've been trying to push with the coach this year is keep our guys doing good, high quality, just speed, at least 5 sprints per week. That's all. It's not a lot, but it seems to be enough to keep hamstring injuries at bay. Does that answer your question, or have I just gone?
Absolutely. And for the last part, you say I was doing the same. I was like, I need to do this amount of sprint, high quality per week, but to protect my hamstrings, the athlete's hamstrings. And I saw from the previous season that I did less and I had less injuries, because I think there is like a sweet spot. Too much is not good. Too much sprinting in preseason can hurt, but you need enough, as you said. So, and it should be high quality. So the coaches need to look at you and them resting, and you need to feel a little bit like, oh, damn, they're going to say something, but you need long rest. So I think in rugby, it's so difficult to let them understand that not everything needs to be high tempo. If you work quality, like power, speed, you need long recovery, doing nothing. And I think it's hard. I think it's hard because they want to feel like exhausted, because they think they get better. But I think this is one of my biggest pet peeves about teaching them that sometimes it's good to not feeling so exhausted, because you are looking for quality and not quantity. So in speed is big, this one.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely.
What about fitness? How you check it? How you score it? You use the Bronco, I think. And how you improving? You use rugby. You use kind of like a special method during practice inside rugby, or what do you do for fitness for rugby?
Yeah, so nothing. Again, all of my programming, all of my S&C, I suppose, is focusing on the basics. I think that, like the back squat or the power clean or whatever, you have to have some sort of measurement for the capacity that you're looking to change. So whether that's the yo-yo or what test do you use again?
I use the 30-15,
okay,
30-15 intermittent.
Yeah, so I think, in the modern day of S&C, or the guys that are online talking about S&C, they'd have you believe that looking at general capacities like back squat or a Bronco or whatever is like so pointless, and you should, all it does is show you a score for that specific test, because the rule of fitness is specificity. So obviously, if you want to get better at rugby, you have to do rugby. That's okay, and I agree with that at a point, but you got to remember you have a whole season, and you might have a whole season times 4 if you're looking at an 18-year-old who, when he's 22, wants to be a professional rugby player or something like that. So definitely having objective data on general capacities, I think, is important. So yes, we use the Bronco for understanding aerobic fitness, more or less, just because it is super simple. The guys know it. Some of them love it, some of them hate it. And yeah, we don't do it all that often, but it just gives an on-field snapshot of where they are. So in terms of that, in terms of how to get fitter, for me, it's a 6-week fix to work on aerobic capacity. Now, whether that carries over to rugby, it depends on the point of the season. So yes, we would love people to be aerobically fit to do their job. What is their job? And that's when the overlap of rugby and S&C comes in. And, one of the best things that I've done more of in Biella, I mean, look, I know the game of rugby, but it's really good to not just look at the session plan on paper before the session, but just look at the session when it gets going. How often is the coach breaking up the movements and talking? How often are the guys moving? And I think that allows you to pull back or push forward slightly when it comes to the specific fitness drills, whether that's aerobic or anaerobic, depending on what you're focusing on, with a ball or without a ball, conditioning games, or just well, what the guys would call shit work in Biella. But yeah, sometimes, you know, I've got a block planned and I'm looking at the games that Aldo, the head coach, is playing with them. And it might just be sort of lock-up orientated games, almost like mapping, but with defenders. And the pace of which they're doing, I'm like, hey, you know, can we do another 5 minutes of that? Because on the radio, that's my imaginary radio. Can we do another 5 minutes of that once they have a break? Because that's, you know, they're playing in 2 weeks. For me, the running intensity is there. And it comes down to, because I don't have the luxury of GPS at Biella, something that we don't have at the moment, or heart rate monitors for everyone. So it really is a coach's eye type deal where I'm looking and going, wow, okay, yes, I can see the props are getting into the pods that they need to. I can see that they're working hard to get there. This is great. So, so yeah, fitness, I think it's, you know, it depends on the type of season. It depends on what the player needs, but it's not losing sight that, you know, you could work on your Bronco and get that down by, let's say 30 seconds because you were running a 5:15. Now you're a 4:45. So you're a back row player who's made a 6-week improvement in the Bronco. Now you're focusing on rugby specific fitness and you're going in season and you're in season now. And for some reason you do a Bronco and you're like 5:10. So you've gone back 25 seconds from your best Bronco, but your match fitness is better. You know, we know that happens. We know that, like, having a good Bronco doesn't mean you're match fit. You need that match fitness because obviously rugby is quite different to a Bronco or whatever test you're using.
I think at the level we are, I think the third game of the season, they are rugby fit. They need free games. If you play a good, free, friendly game before the season, they are fit. Because I think nothing beats rugby for conditioning for rugby. And as you said, I did the same. Like I programmed my conditioning, but I also programmed a certain type of rugby games during the practices. If that games it has what I want, I don't do my part. Just keep going for another 5 or 10 minutes because they need more there than what I say. If of course, if they are completely off, the ball is always on the ground. Okay, stop this, and we're gonna do a 10-minute blocks of my work. But again, as you say, coaching guys is everything. Of course, having GPS and heart rate monitor is gonna help even more, but not a lot of teams got that. Of course, at the amateur level or semi-pro. So absolutely, good. Next question is: during this strange year, during this pandemic year. Of course, as a strength and conditioning coach, we had a lot of free time because, of course, the season ended. We didn't know when we start again. What did you work on during these off times?
Well, I worked my way through Netflix. I've seen pretty much every movie from there. No, I guess it's good for refining things that you maybe didn't have time for when you're coaching in and out every day, like just whatever that might be in the back end of things, changing how you collect data from the boys, things like that. But for me, it's just kind of been, that's why I think it's good to have a general model in place. So you're kind of, I mean, now that we're going in lockdown for who knows when, we've gone back into that GPP phase, the general prep phase, and that it makes it so easy. You know, it could be overwhelming in your head. Oh God, we just got to here, and now I want to go there, but no, just okay. The game's that far away. Where are you here? Where are you there? We're at the GPP phase now because we're so far away from the game, and that allows you to make easy exercise selections. Like one of the things in the past that I was guilty of is trying to hang on too much to certain exercises, or we've just made significant progress on the counter movement jump and power clean. Now we're going into a GPP phase, but I'll keep some power clean in there just because I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it. Like, that's a mistake I made when I was younger as a coach, and now I'm very comfortable with just bumping things down in the priority list and acknowledging that that isn't the priority right now. That will come back, and it will come back even better. But right now we're focusing on building this capacity and getting really good at that, and then we'll move on. So it's not block periodization, because you always have a little bit of something in there. You always want a little bit of running if you're a rugby player, a little bit of sprinting. But there'll be times where you go through a heavy squat cycle, for example, if you need to work on leg strength. I guess for me, it's not so hard to quickly move between the two, just because you've got a model in place. The hard thing is the understanding, trying to anticipate the psychology of the athlete application. So if you're in your house for 2 weeks, yes, there's things that you can do, and you can go for runs, but we're still waiting on understanding, you can run close to your house, but like, does that mean you can run to the park that's 1K away, or is that too much? I don't know. So it'd be good to have clarity on that. But look, I mean, life is full of barriers, and it's just going to be a case like anything. The person and the team or whoever that adapts the quickest to the new circumstances is going to be the most successful. So the longer you spend as a coach or an athlete of, this is terrible, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's like, well, you can keep saying that, but your situation is the same. So it's better to think now, okay, what can we do? And let's do that. And that's going to improve our situation as a coach or as an athlete. So if as a coach, all I can do is have someone doing press-ups, runs, and pull-ups on a tree, then I'm going to program that 3 times a week, and I'm going to change it and vary it to make them better at whatever it is I'm trying to target. But yeah, I think just being able to adapt quickly is super important in these times.
I really like what you just say, because I think as a strength and conditioning coach, we got a little bit of OCD. We like to have everything organized for a year and know exactly when it's gonna be. And as we talk privately, you were always the guy that say, "Oh, we got 3 weeks delayed. Okay, I'm gonna do a 1 week of the deload, and then I'm gonna add 2 more weeks." And you always like have the next question. I really appreciate you sharing this with me, because I have to learn doing that. And I think during this year, I learned a lot to take care less about everything and have everything planned, and just control what you can control. And as you say, act quickly. Okay, this thing changed. Just do something for that. Don't overthink it too much. Just do what do you think is best for the next 3 weeks, and don't overthink it too much. And as you say, having like a little bit of structure, so it's like, okay, I go to GPP and then hypertrophy, so how to move without stressing too much your head. So I think this part of the podcast I really enjoy, because I think everyone can learn from you and from how you think. So thanks for sharing.
No, prego. But I mean, it's all my ideas, all my philosophies I've stolen from other people. So I mean,
no,
I think
of course, but
I can't even remember the quotation. It's I can't remember who said it, but famous quotation is, a good decision today is better than a great decision tomorrow. That might not always be true, but it's certainly something that hits home with me in terms of, let's just make a decision and go there. And hindsight is always a wonderful thing. The more you wait, the more information you can have, but then it's maybe too late to act. So, make a good decision today, instead of waiting for tomorrow, because tomorrow might never come,
Absolutely. Let's go into the final part of the podcast. This is the question that I always ask. And for you, it's a little bit special, because I ask, what's in your opinion is going to be the future for strength and conditioning industry in Italy? And as a guy from outside, what do you think? Where we are going, what we need to do as a field in Italy?
Oh, look, I think I'm not in a position to say. I think that, you know, I was lucky last year to spend time with the Italian rugby team in camp, one of their camps, and the preparation is fantastic. You know, they were doing everything that you would see it in Scotland, England, the professional sides, every little detail from rehab to what the coaches are delivering to the attitude the athletes had. So I think it's not so much about you know, Italy. I think it's just the different levels of S&C, and you have the same in Scotland and England. You know, there's the people at the top of the game that are working with the national team. You know, they're there for a reason. You know, they know their stuff. They are very, very good, and they're working with the athletes that they have, and it's great. It's great. And then there's layers to that. You know, you'll have good doctors and dentists. You know, you'll have doctors that disagree with each other on the same problem, and you'll have experienced doctors and less experienced doctors. And so I think the question's a tough one, because I wouldn't want to, or I don't think you'd get value from me saying, hey, I think Italy needs this, because it's just so broad. That's me kind of getting out of that question.
I got you. No problem. You got it right to do it. Okay, let's move to the rapid fire questions. The first one is easy. What's your favorite gym exercise?
Say again, sorry?
What's your favorite gym exercise?
Oh, personally or for my athletes?
Personally.
Do you know what? It changes every year, but I'm going to say the chin-up.
Chin-up. Oh, interesting. Okay. A book, it could be about strength and conditioning or another field, that changed your life.
Okay, this is one I read a long time ago. It's called The 1 Minute Manager.
1 Minute Manager.
The 1 Minute Manager. There was a time before I was an S&C coach where I had to manage people. And as you know, being an S&C coach, you have to manage people anyway. But the 1 Minute Manager, it kind of opened my eyes to a few things at that time. I was a lot younger, and I certainly changed my style and how I perceived situations after reading that book. So I would recommend. It's a very simple, very short book as well, but I'd recommend it.
Perfect. A mistake you did in your career that you learned from that mistake a lot. The biggest mistake that you learned a lot from.
Well, I mean, I've already mentioned the maybe clinging on to certain exercises or attributes when I'm trying to focus on something else. So, you know, if I really looked at my session on paper, it was like 50% power, 50% strength, whereas what should have been for that period of time was like 80% strength, 20% power for potentiation. So I think it's not like a big mistake where there's been significant bad consequences, but it's certainly been something that, you know, when I left my previous job before working into Scottish Rugby, so in my job in Aberdeen, I was guilty of that a little bit. And as I stepped up into Scottish Rugby, I tried to really just prioritise things and make that marry up to, you know, what's written on the programme.
Okay, perfect. 3 people, dead or alive, famous or less famous, that you would like to go out for a dinner, and why?
Okay. Dana White from the UFC.
I like that.
Yeah. I think he comes across as a really natural and genuine guy on TV. I don't know him, but he's obviously a very smart businessman. So that would be, I think, very interesting. So that'd be number 1. Number two would be, I'd love to go for dinner with Donald Trump.
Okay. Big topic at the moment.
Exactly. You know, you know, I'll never give my political views, especially on American politics, but either way, you know that dinner is going to be interesting. And again, whether you like or dislike Donald Trump, because you can't be neutral with him, people either hate him or love him. Whether you love him or hate him, if you look at the guy's career and look at lots of mistakes that he's made and lots of success he's had, you're certainly going to learn lessons from speaking to the guy. So again, you know, Dana White would be a different tune. I think Donald Trump would be just crazy, but it'd certainly be an entertaining dinner table. And then the last person. That's a good one. That's me kind of coming undone here. You know, I'm not sure who'd be the last person.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to think more about that. It's an important role. It's an important decision.
Okay. If you want, we can move forward.
Yeah, man. We'll come. If I think of someone, I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Who needs to be the next guest of this podcast? If you know some guy, some strength and conditioning coach that you think is gonna bring some value for the podcast.
Definitely. In Inglese or Italiano?
Both. I don't know if this English version gonna be well received. Let's see.
Okay, vedremo. So if in English, I will suggest and I'll ask Mark Robertson. He's a former, he's an Olympic medalist for rugby sevens, but he's an S&C coach now. Very nice guy. Obviously knows his stuff, and he works right now. He works in France, I believe, for Clermont.
Okay.
So if he's available, you know, and certainly he'd be one that he loves talking about strength and conditioning just as much as I do. And you know, I've bashed ideas off him, and we've had chats, and I think he'd be, you know, if the English goes down okay, then he'd certainly be interesting, especially because he's working with a higher level than Serie A. So there's insights to take from there. The last time I spoke to him, he was operating a similar sort of model and programming for me, where we go into the specific prep and then even a bit of triphasic training in the pre-competition phase. But yeah, good guy to talk to. And yeah, I think that would be my main suggestion.
Perfect. Man, thank you. It's been amazing. I think hopefully people's gonna appreciate even in English. I think a lot of strength and conditioning coach in Italy knows English, because you learn from outside Italy a lot. So I think it's gonna be a big it's gonna be a big episode, I think. But please tell the people where they can find you, because you are one of the most active people I know on social media. You post a lot, and I love your page on Instagram and YouTube. So please, people, go follow him and see the content he's putting out. It's like the biggest publisher I know in strength and conditioning. So where they can find you?
Rightly or wrongly, maybe, but Instagram, Coach FMT. YouTube, Coach FMT, and that's it for my professional side of things. Yeah, if you're interested in strength and conditioning and some shenanigans, then that's where you'll find me.
Great. I'm gonna put the link in the description, so they just click and they can find you. Go follow him. And Coach Fraser, again, as always, it's been a pleasure talking shop with you, talking strength and conditioning with you. Is always, you learn every time. So thanks a lot for being the guest on this special episode. And let's see if you start a new type of English version of this warm-up podcast.
Nice. Grazie mille a lei.
Great. Okay, guys. See you next time. Grazie mille a tutti. Ci vediamo alla prossima puntata.
Se sei arrivato fino a questo punto, molto probabilmente hai trovato interessante questa nuova puntata. Perciò, come detto all'inizio, ti rinnovo e ti chiedo il favore di aiutarmi a far crescere questo podcast tramite i tuoi social network, seguendo le pagine Instagram ed il canale YouTube. Alla prossima, un saluto da Coach JT.